let's begin by saying the continents and the oceans.
Europe, North America, South America, Africa, Australia, Antarctica.
Now the oceans.
Pacific Ocean, Arctic Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, Indian Ocean, Southern Ocean, Pacific Ocean, Arctic Ocean.
All right, very good. Now, I'm just going to turn it around. I'm going to turn around and see how you guys do on the 5 different regions of the United States. So what is this?
Northeast,
Very good.
Southeast,
Southeast, northeast, southeast.
Northwest,
No.
Southwest,
Midwest. Midwest. This is
West,
no.
Northwest,
Southwest.
and West.
All right, let's try it again. I don't hear you.
Northeast, Southeast, Midwest, Southwest,
Southwest. Guys, north is up, south is down. So this is northeast, southeast. This one is not known as northwest. It is midwest. Midwest, because it's in the middle. This is south, it's down, so southwest. And then this area is just west.
The compass rose gives it away.
Well, it's not giving away to some people. Okay, so let's try it again.
Northeast, Southeast, Midwest, Southwest, West.
Very good. Now we're going to do the landforms. And let's see if you can name them. And I may forget some of them because I'm doing the side that doesn't have a name. So let's start here.
Desert, oasis, marsh,
You would know that one really well, don't you, Olivia?
island, peninsula, lake, gorge, volcano, mountain, hill, plain, river, waterfall, valley.
No, this is a valley. This whole thing is a river, guys. Even back here in the distance where it gets small, that doesn't make it be a stream. It's still part of the river. Okay, but I was pointing right here between the mountains. That would be a valley. And I don't think I missed any, but if I did, I did. All right. All right, now we're going to read, starting on page 36. All right, on page 36, we're going to start reading about Miles Standish. And I had to take my timeline down, so I can't do it. But let's say 1607 was when Jamestown, I don't know what you're doing. Stop, I'm not reading. 1607 on the timeline was when Jamestown was started. So now we're gonna go a little bit ahead to 1620. So 13 years later, okay? And it was in 1613 that we learned that John Smith made that map of a place called Massachusetts. And let me use this map to point it out to you. All right, so Massachusetts is right here where this state that has this hook on the end, that is Massachusetts. So that's where we're going to be talking about that the Pilgrims went. And it was in 1613 that John Smith made a map of this New England coastline. And the Pilgrims used that map to come to Massachusetts. Okay, this is in 1620, so 7 years after he made the map, and it's 13 years after Jamestown was founded. Okay, let's read Miles Standish. It says see again. You remember what that meant on Pocahontas? It says see 1584. So what does that see mean? Who remembers? You remember?
They don't really know when he died.
The actual word is circa, C-I-R-C-A, circa, and it means they don't know, but the best guess they have is 1584. And I'm not sure why. I know why for Pocahontas, because the Native Americans didn't keep the most accurate records of things like that. But I'm not sure why Miles Standish they don't know. But he was 1584 to 1656. A trip on the Mayflower. So here's another ship. The Pilgrims enjoyed the few sunny days when they could breathe fresh air on the deck of the Mayflower and let their children play. But most days aboard the Mayflower, the Pilgrims stayed below deck. This ship was not like ships of today. It was a small wooden boat. It had no rooms with soft beds. There was no fancy dining room. There was not much space at all. All right, top to the next page. I just need to see where I'm supposed to stop. Okay, sorry. The ship was only as long as a basketball court. That's not a really huge ship, is it? Not like these big cruise ships of today. There were no bathrooms and showers. Without windows, it was dark, cold, and damp below deck. But the Pilgrims did not mind the hardships. They knew the Mayflower was taking them to a new life. Before we turn the page, let's read the important words and the important names together out loud. Separatists, Englishmen who wanted to separate from the Church of England. Notice how the word separatist has the word separate. Strangers, Englishmen who came to America for adventure. Pilgrims, the name given to the separatists and strangers when they sailed to America. So the Pilgrims was really made up of two groups. The separatists who were coming for religious reasons because they did not want to worship the way the Church of England was saying they had to worship, and then the strangers who came for adventure. Both together made up the Pilgrims. All right, Mayflower Compact. Laws written to govern the Pilgrims in America, the first form of self-government in the New World. All right, now important names. Mayflower, the Pilgrim ship. Miles Standish, military leader of the Plymouth colony. Samoset, the first Native American to help the Pilgrims. All right, turn the page. All right, before we continue reading about Miles Standish, we are going to talk about ships from then and from now and compare a little bit. All right, so traveling on the Mayflower was not easy. The ship sailed only about 80 miles a day. It's not that far, is it? No. I mean, you can travel 80 miles in like an hour and a half in a car. Ships were built from wood and powered by wind. When the sails filled with wind, they pushed the ship along. The captain used a stick called a whipstaff to move the tiller and rudder that guided the ship. Instead of having GPS like we use today, he used a compass to tell him his direction. The Pilgrims put cannons on the Mayflower to protect themselves from pirates, foreign enemies, and Indians. Shipbuilding has improved over the years. Now there are cargo ships, battleships, and cruise ships. Ships were invented that did not have to depend on wind. Steamboats were powered by steam engines. They were much better for travel than the Mayflower, but they still weren't quite fast enough. During the Civil War, warships were built for battle with better guns and cannons. The warships of today come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, some with enough room for other ships to be stored inside. One of the greatest warships is the destroyer. It can even destroy a missile in the air. Your favorite ship may be a cruise ship. The Pilgrims would have been amazed at the size of them and the fun things to do on board. Cruise ships able to carry thousands of passengers are built for comfort. All right, so notice that little tiny picture of the Mayflower. They call it the Mayflower 2. That is Roman numeral for 2, because that is not the real Mayflower, is it? That would be a replica of it. All right, and then they show you a picture of a cargo ship and a warship and a cruise ship. If you were to put the Mayflower by any of those other ships, it would make it seem tiny compared to those ships. All right, top of the next page, who were the Pilgrims? The passengers on board the Mayflower were divided into two groups called separatists and strangers. The separatists dreamed of living in a free land where they could worship as they chose. They wanted to separate from the Church of England. The separatists called the other group of passengers the strangers. The strangers did not come for freedom of religion. They dreamed of adventure. Though the separatists and the strangers have different names and different dreams, they are best known as pilgrims. Together, they were a group of wanderers to a strange new country. All right, so down below they show you a map. And we haven't actually learned this yet, but we're gonna learn that the separatists, the ones that were separated from the Church of England, went from England to Holland. And you can see that on that map there. Does everybody see Holland? They point to Holland, it's red. And then after they got to Holland, they decided, you know what, this is not good for us either, and that's when they decided to go to the New World. And so you can see they had to go all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, and they show you where they landed, and then they make it bigger so you can see a map of Massachusetts, like I showed you just a while ago, and they show you two places. The first place they're gonna land is right here at the hook. But they're gonna not be able to stay there, so they're gonna have to go around inside the hook to another place, and we will talk about that when we continue reading in history next week. But the first place they landed was called Cape Cod. Does everybody see that on the map? And then there's a dot on the inside of that hook that's called Plymouth. Plymouth is where they actually stayed. Cape Cod was not a good place to stay. So, in the important places, the first place they have there is Holland, then Cape Cod, and last of all, Plymouth, the place where the Pilgrims settled in 1620. All right, turn the page. We are just going to do the comprehension check. The separatists came to America for what reason? Who can remember? Landon?
To go away, so they can do their own things, and they.
What do you mean by their own things?
Like they can do whatever they want.
I need to be a little more specific.
Well,
What were they trying to get away from?
they were trying to get away from the English church.
The Church of England. So in other words, they wanted freedom to worship. The Church of England was trying to say that they had to worship God in a certain way. And they didn't think it was what the Bible was saying. So they really wanted freedom to worship. So everybody say, why were they coming to America? Freedom to worship. The strangers came to America for what reason? Tess. Adventure. What one name do we call both these groups? The separatists and the strangers are
Pilgrims.
Pilgrims. And what was the name of their ship? Adam? Zeke?
Mayflower.
The Mayflower. Very good.
The biggest